So one of my goals here on Facebook Live is to help you teach better, save time, and live more. So I thought we would address the lining up issue. And I know a lot of you have mastered lining up already. So if you're a seasoned pro at lining up, share your tips in the comments. And I know someone just said, tell them to look at the back of their friend's head. I've always done that too. It works really well. But the thing about lining up with little kids is that it's not a natural thing for them, right? So they're not just born saying, yay, I want to line up. Like it's not, it's not something that they do, that comes to them naturally. So if you think about their experiences before they come to your classroom, right? Some of them, it may be their first experience in a formal school setting, and they don't line up at home, right? When they're with mom and dad, there's no lining up involved. When they're with grandma and grandpa, there's no lining up involved. Especially if they're the only child, there's no lining up involved. They are the star of the show, so why shouldn't they be at the front of the line, right? It's the me show. So little kids are not born knowing how to line up. It's a very artificial thing. So it's something that has to be taught. It's a procedure or a routine that you put in place in your classroom. And so it's really important to set not only yourself, but the kids up for success with this routine. So some of the things that I've been getting asked over in the Facebook group is some people are saying that their kids have problems with lining up because when it's time to line up, they all rush to the line at the same time. So here's the thing with little kids. They will do that because everything is about them, right? They're very egocentric. Everything is about them. So therefore, they should be at the front of the line. So we never release them all at the same time to do anything, whether that's go to centers or line up or whatever. So we're always going to release them gradually in little dribbles and like little drips from a faucet. So you have to set them up for success and do it in a way so that they're not all going in the same direction at the same time. So what happens then is that you get a traffic flow problem, right? Because so many of us have more children than our space really has ample room for, right? So you have a traffic problem when that happens. So we're going to release them gradually. So what does that look like though? So if you've got 19 kids in your class, I'd say that's about average for a public pre-K classroom these days. If you've got 19 kids and you're going to let only one line up at a time, that's a long time. So that's too slow. So you can have it the opposite. You can have them lining up too quickly, or you can have it take too long, because by the time you get to the last kid, it's been too long. So it has to be quick. It's a transition, right? Transitions are quick. So it has to happen quickly, but it also has to happen in a very managed way. So some of the things that I've done in the past, and I'm sure some of you have done too, that works really well, is to have something on the floor to let them know where to line up. So one of my problems was that once my kids understood lining up, they didn't always know what the appropriate distance was from the person in front of them, or our doors swung inward. And so if they were standing too close to the door, then I couldn't open it to get out, right? Their sense of personal space and space in general isn't all that great. So to set them up for success, I put a stop line. So I put a piece of red tape at the place where the first person in line was supposed to stop, so that we made sure the door could open adequately. And then I added another piece of tape, and then they had to stand on the piece of tape. Now, not everybody, I know this is true because I've certainly gotten in trouble for it before. Not everyone is allowed to put tape on their floor, or some of you may have carpeted classrooms, so tape may not be an option for you. I always beg for forgiveness. So I always put tape on the floor and say, oh, I teach pre-K. I have to have tape on the floor, so I just assumed it was okay because I was in this classroom teaching pre-K. And then you can beg for forgiveness. But I always put colored tape on the floor. Does it leave a residue? If you have carpet, for sure it will. And if you have a floor, probably. But usually it comes up pretty easily on a tiled floor. Some people in the comments may have better ideas on how to get that residue off of those two surfaces. Another thing I saw this summer, one thing I like about Dollar Tree, I know all of you love the Dollar Tree, right? is that I think they listen in on some of these broadcasts sometimes, because sometimes they have stuff in the Dollar Tree in the teacher section that you're like, oh, that is something I have been needing and wanting. And they had those little feet, those little pictures of little feet that you can put on the floor. They had those recently. And I was like, that's brilliant. So you can put those on the floor, and I usually would cover those kinds of things with contact paper or packing tape. And again, leaves a residue. So, you got to kind of figure out what's going to work best for you in your situation. I think I had one of our tribe members, maybe it was Claire, who was using window clings on the floor, which I thought was pretty genius, because they often sell window clings at the dollar stores, and you could put those little window clings. You know what I'm talking about? They're like these little vinyl-y things that are kind of transparent, and they have like a picture printed on them. If you put them in the window, the light shines through and all that, which is fabulous, of course. But on the floor, they might work well as I've heard people have used those for lining up. So let me just check the comments really quick. Let's see. Oh, I like this one. Tasty shares here. I hope it doesn't disappear before I'm done. They practiced Mary had, okay, it went away. The comments are going really fast. Mary had a little lamb, and they pretend the person in the front is Mary, and then they're the lambs following her. That's really cute. So here's how I was talking about how you release kids in little dribs and drabs to line up, but not too fast and not too slow, so that you can control the traffic. Often a lot of what we do in the early childhood classroom is traffic control, right? Because we've got a lot of kids in a small space. So some of the things that have worked really well for me in the past are to call them to line up in small groups using things like the type of shoes they're wearing. If you're wearing tie shoes, you can line up. I always kind of survey the room just really quickly with my eyes, because if everyone's wearing tie shoes, then that doesn't work. Or if only one kid's wearing tie shoes, that doesn't work either. So you kind of have to just use your eyes really quickly, survey the room, and figure out. This is something that happens really instantaneously, and you'll get used to doing it really quickly. Colors of their shirts. If you see that there's a couple of kids wearing red shirts today, then you might say, if you're wearing a red shirt, you can line up today. I've done Velcro shoes, tie shoes, collars on your shirt if you have a collar, and that's a great way to do vocabulary. Most kids don't understand that if they're like a polo shirt, they have a collar on their shirt. T-shirts, I'll use vocabulary to support those things. So if you're wearing a collar shirt, you can line up today. If your shirt is a t-shirt, you can line up. If you're wearing a shirt with buttons, you can line up. If you have short hair, long hair, short and long, those are two mathematical terms that we have to use in our curriculum. So that's great. Now you're practicing math. How did you come to school today? Did you ride on the bus or did you ride in a car? That's something you'll have to think in your head that So that might not be something that you do really early in the year until you really are positive that there's enough kids to do that. Because like I used to work in a school where all the kids were bused. So that wouldn't work for me because they would all line up. And then the other school I worked at, they were all walkers, or they all lived, either the car or walking. So there were no buses. So, it really depends. You kind of have to know how your kids got there. Or maybe you work in a situation where all the kids come in a car. So you have to think about that. Short pants and long pants here in Texas, that's really fun to do because we can pretty much wear shorts for a lot of the year. Sandals or sneakers. I know some public schools don't allow sandals or flip-flops, but you can differentiate the types of shoes. I used to do light-up shoes and not light-up shoes, but then you don't want the kids to feel bad because light-up shoes are like a status symbol, so you have to be careful about that. If you're wearing earrings, like if you have several girls that you notice wearing earrings, if you're wearing earrings, you can line up. And then the next batch of kids that you choose, if you're wearing striped shirts, we used to do patterns on the shirts. If you're wearing a shirt with words on it, if you're wearing a shirt with stripes, if you're wearing long sleeves or short sleeves, if you're wearing a jacket, if you have a hood, anything that you can see that will give you a small group of children to line up, that's what you do. And that gets them to line up gradually in little spurts so that they're not all running and pushing to the front. And somebody was saying over in the Facebook group that they always want to push and they want to be first. And so one of the best ways to solve that is to have a classroom helper who's the line leader that changes daily or weekly or however you want it to change, but to assign that role to somebody. And that way they know that the person who's first. And so usually when I would have my kids line up, I would say, I need my, whatever you call that person, whether that's a line leader or helper, whatever. I need my helper or whatever to go to the front of the line. We're going to start lining up soon. And that person just goes because they know that's their job. I do have a classroom helper kit over in the store. And of course, if you're a member of the Teaching Tribe, you can go over and grab that right now. And it has the line leader pictures in it. And then you can start calling your small groups. And you can also assign a person at the end. And then whatever you have on the floor to guide them, they do need some kind of a guide, because just saying line doesn't mean anything, right? So it's like telling them to form the word the. They don't know how to read, so that's not going to work either. So they have to have some kind of guide on the floor. And I know that that's not always doable because of the situations we work in. One school I worked at, we had paint on the walls in the hallway. So there was like this red swath of bricks, right? And then one line was painted a different color. And so I used to tell them to go out and touch that line on the wall. Of course, then the principal was mad because their little fingers were marring up the paint, but they need some kind of a guide in order to do that. So something in the line, on the floor or on the wall, or something to give them a visual of where to stand. And then I do have them look at the person in front of them. That's what I tell them when we're walking down the hallway, to look at the person in front of you, because quite often they're not used to looking at the person in front of them. So they might be standing in the line, but then moving forward is a completely different skill set. So just the act of lining up is one part of the equation, but the act of moving forward is a completely different part of the equation that takes even more skill. So now you're juggling and walking the tightrope at the same time, right? So you want them to have some kind of a guide when they get in the line. You're going to have to give them some kind of a spacing thing, because they don't understand personal space. So sometimes they line up too close together, and then the person in front will just turn their head, like say they're wearing a ponytail, and it will flip the other person in the face. She hurt me. Well, it's because you're standing like with your nose in her neck. You gotta move back. So I always tell them about the personal space and how we should leave some room between each other. That's why I do like the idea of the feet or a shape or something on the floor so that they're not too close together. And if you're lining up to go home and they have backpacks, then that's even more space. And so you really have to, I think the mathematical equation of getting the line on the floor and getting everything spaced out is really tough, because you're like, okay, this is how big the child is. And then you add the backpack and they're this big. So this is how much space we need. It's very difficult to figure out, because if you get it all laid out on the floor and you get it all down and then the kids get in there and you realize that your spacing is off, then you get a problem, right? Let me see. Sit spots work well for the carpet, says Michelle. I've heard that too. Yes, absolutely. And if you have a carpet that will take sit spots is the name of a company that makes these really cool little Velcro shapes, and they adhere to like the industrial classroom carpet, not a plush carpet or a shag carpet or anything like that, but a really cheap industrial carpet that you would have in a public school. They adhere to that. But the fancy like lakeshore rugs and the fancy classroom rugs, like with all the colors and stuff, they don't really stick to those, because those are all like flame retardant and really soft pile and all that. They don't stick to those. But Velcro works too. The hard side of the Velcro stuck to the floor. If you have carpet in your room, that would be a great way for a stop. To keep them from running into the wall or whatever. I used to write stop on top of the tape too. Get some literacy in there. Why not, right? Yes, Cindy just said what I said. Let's see. Window clings are a great idea. Somebody from here or the tribe said that, Jennifer. I thought it was a neat idea. I don't know how they'll withstand like mopping if you have a tile floor and then mopping at night. I haven't done it myself, but somebody somewhere said that, and I thought that was a really brilliant idea. Judith says they put monkeys with numbers on the floor. She uses contact paper. Yes, and then she has a line of tape where the waiting for hand washing begins. That's a good one too, because they will go right up to the back of the person in front of them if they're waiting in line for drinks or hand washing or whatever. There has to be a stop line because they don't know. Let's see. Oh, I was stuck way up in the comments there because I was looking for that thing from Tasty. Um, Hey, Marsha's here. Marsha, yay, round of applause. Marsha is our dollar store expert. Marsha, we were just talking about the Dollar Tree and those little feet that they had in the teacher section where you could put them on the floor for kids to line up. So, yeah, so let us know if you've seen anything cool there recently. How far apart should the next space be? I would look at the kids when they're there in the classroom and lined up and kind of get a feel for that. You can even take a yardstick out and say, okay, this is a good spacing between the kids. But really, you have to get a feel for your kids and what it's like when they have their puffy winter coat if you work in a place or you live in a place where it's cold, and their giant backpack. So you can have space between them. Hey, Angel. Renee says a rope with knots for them to hold on to. I think for the younger kids that can work. I tried it with really large classes that I had, and I think it's for large classes of 19, it doesn't work as well because I found that if one kid was lagging, like it kept the rope, and then pretty soon the line was, we were walking like snails, you know. So I found that with really large classes, the rope didn't work for me. I think with smaller classes, that it would be a really good tool. I made one with shower curtain rings and clothesline one year. But because my class was so large, it didn't work out for me. But I can see how with a smaller class, it's really helpful. Let's see. Hey, Mary. Birthday month. I find that most preschoolers don't understand the concept of months or birthdays. They just always think today and tomorrow is their birthday or yesterday. So I haven't had much success with that. Let's see. Name tags with their picture attached on the floor? Interesting. I have not tried that. Oh yes, you can call them to line up by letters they have in their name. You have to really be thinking though, because you're spinning all those balls in the air. You're walking that tightrope. You got to think, okay, does every kid in this room have an A or an E in his name? Okay, I can't pick those letters. Pick the more obscure letters, and that has to be a little later in the year because right now they have no idea. Oh yeah, you can use all kinds of academics too. Letters in their name. How old they are, beginning sound, beginning letter of their first name. Let's see, what else? You didn't find any feet, Kathleen? I found the ones that were boots, like army boots. You know what I'm talking about? They were like footprints that weren't tennis shoes, but they were boots. They had those. But I found that the Dollar Tree has been sold out a lot of those teacher things lately because they've been getting really, really smart about what they put there so that everything gets sold out. Okay, I think I caught up. Okay, so those are some ideas for lining up. So think about these things when you're getting kids to line up. Think about the traffic flow. How are they getting from your large group area? Because you're usually dismissing to line up from a large group area, right? How are they getting from that place to the line? And that line of sight there, that traffic area has to be clear. Because if they have to take the scenic route to get over there, it's going to take twice as long. So our transitions need to be really quick in order to be effective and efficient. So having that path clear so they can go in a straight line and line up, that works really well. Releasing only a few at a time by calling on it. If you have trouble I don't have a printable for this, but people always ask me for printables that I'm like, I never thought about making a printable for that. But I would write some of these down on an index card if any of these are new to you, or if you have trouble remembering on the fly, on the spot, write them down on index cards, like, collars and buttons, long sleeves, short sleeves, long pants, long hair, short hair. Write them on an index card and keep it in your pocket. And that way, when you're on the spot for, to think really quick, you can pull that out and use that. So release only a few at a time using some of those little tricks. Use classroom helpers. That really helps so that there's no arguing about who is in the front of the line. Use something on the floor to indicate where the line should be, because the concept of line is not something that they're born with. It's not something that comes naturally. It has to be taught. Painter's tape, colored masking tape, electrical tape, all that stuff is great. Just make sure that you ask for forgiveness or you check in advance, whichever you prefer, because a lot of times we get in trouble for that kind of thing. But it really helps things go more smoothly. And for those of you who are just starting back to school, and I know a lot of you are tired and stressed, just know that things will get better. We've seen a lot of people under a lot of stress over in our Facebook group, and I just want to let you know it's going to get better. I know it doesn't seem like it, but it will. Tom can tell you it's true. I used to cry at the beginning of every year, but it will get better. So just hang in there. Try to solve the problems you can solve right now, and work on that list of things you want to improve on slowly, one thing at a time. Otherwise, it's going to seem absolutely impossible. So check those out. Don't forget, tonight, Eric Litwin's contest for his book, his new book, Groovy Joe Dance Party Countdown. If you haven't entered to get an autographed copy yet, you're going to want to do that, because the book will officially be released tomorrow. And so the contest is closing, I think, at midnight tonight. So you're going to want to enter that before it closes so you can get an autographed copy of Eric Litwin's newest book that has not been released yet. It will be released tomorrow. What else? Oh, and I want to thank everyone for joining me tonight. And for those of you from the Teaching Tribe, thank you so much. The Teaching Tribe is my premium membership site, a place for teachers just like you to teach better, save time, and live more. And over there in the Teaching Tribe, we have all of the paid printables from Pre-K Pages, which is more than a $900, I think it's almost $1,000 value, because I added like 6 printables this week. And 5 of them were bundles. So $1,000 value of printables, 24/7, available at your fingertips to download and use right away in your classroom. A supportive community of new and veteran teachers, a safe haven for asking and answering questions. And of course, we have our monthly power hours and office hours. Those are video trainings with me. Each one comes with a certificate of attendance for 1 hour. And of course, we add new things to the Teaching Tribe every month, so your value goes up every month that you are a member. Doors are closed right now to new members, but if you want to be on the waiting list to be notified as soon as we open those doors again, Tom will drop a link for you in the comments below, so you will be the first to know when we're having our next open enrollment. So I want to thank everyone for joining us. I'll see you again Wednesday night right here on Facebook. I'm Vanessa Levin from Pre-K Pages. Have a great night.